2, 1.
Welcome to Made for More Living.
One small step for man.
With Johnny Jennings.
Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
The fastest and most exciting hour of news, events, and real estate in Northern California.
And this is a fact that was proved.
Powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Get ready. Here we go.
So I heard this joke from this. It's this dad joke, and it goes, "The next 6 months are going to be terrific."
That's right.
Right? Stole that one from you, Matt.
That's a good one.
But man, oh my gosh, I am already tired, honestly, of hearing that word. I'm tired of hearing tariffs. But what's interesting is it's now starting to have like real life consequences in industry, in people's businesses, in people's lives. Like, I know you used to be in financial services, right, Shawn?
Yes. Thank goodness I am not. We talked a little bit about that, man.
I can't imagine.
400 people would have been calling me all in the same day, 2 days.
Oh, my gosh. I cannot. Yeah. I mean, we just had somebody, we had a house on the market for $2.4 million. The buyer was pulled out. I'm not entirely sure why. I know why they said, but I'm not entirely sure I believe it. And then the seller kind of just said, hey, you know what, let's just hit pause because people are just worried right now about the T word, about tariffs.
Yeah, so, something you hadn't heard of before, and now it's like the lexicon of everyone.
Correct. Yeah, and it used to be like interest rates, purchase price. Who was talking about tariffs, a couple months ago? But now it's a thing. And by the way, talking with Shawn Davis with SolarWise, and so your business is solar.
Yes.
How are these tariffs impacting your industry?
Great question. I mean, I don't think that there's any business that's going to be immune to the effects of what's going on right now, right? It's an active discussion. Anytime you talk about big global movements of change, it's going to affect everyone's pocketbook to some degree, either positively or negatively. And so for us in solar, same thing's kind of happening. I mean, right now, solar componentry is made predominantly throughout the world. Stated a different way, very little of solar componentry is made exclusively in the United States. So we're dealing with the same thing. All of the installers, I'm a solar broker, so it means I've gone through about 30 different companies trying to find really 11 good ones in California right now. And we spent several years kind of developing a list of really good installers. And all of the installers that we are working with or guiding us right now or have intimated to us that there will be pricing increases on solar componentry, and depending on the installer, that could vary. So the issue is, normally with an installation company that installs a solar system, it does not behoove them long-term to have 10 different panels from 10 different parts of the world that they can offer a consumer. Because with that type of broad availability, they can't really get scale. Mm-hmm. The idea behind solar installers is it's a very competitive marketplace, very low margins.
Like how tight are those margins?
7 to 10%.
Really?
Yeah.
That is skinny.
It's very, very skinny. And so what an installer will do is they'll select a base panel for their normal installation program, and they'll buy those in bulk, buy 5,000 of them, 10,000 of them. So depending on where those panels are coming from, you could see cost increases as nominal as maybe 10% to as high as maybe 30%, and it's ever evolving. It's changing, right?
Yeah.
Every day to the next. Okay, we're going to have a tariff where it's going to off. Now it's reduced. Oh, it's going to go in effect 90 days. Nope, it's going to go effect next week. So it leaves all of us in kind of construction, specifically home construction, and very specifically solar, in a position where here's the one thing I can say: if you are at all curious about solar, if you're at all interested in mitigating your utility bill, here's emphatically what I'm going to say: it's never going to be cheaper than right now, today. Because our expectation is that there's not going to be a positive economic effect to what's going on with the tariff policy of the Trump administration right now.
Do you think, or are installers already starting to raise their prices in anticipation of?
Yes,
because I mean they're selling yesterday's panels, but they got to buy tomorrow's panels.
Yes, that's already happened. So of the 11 installers that we work with as a solar brokerage company, we've had 2 already begin to raise prices. Both of them were in the 10 to 12% range. So that's but again that can continue. How is this all going to shake out? Yeah. I hope you know. I don't know.
I don't know,
and probably our audience doesn't know.
I just hope to be around for it. Man,
yes, but, you and me both.
But last year, you had shared with me off the air that there were 6 rate increases in 2024. Is that correct?
Yeah. The problem of utility expense in California is persistent, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. So just to kind of frame it for the audience, if they haven't kept up with it, in California wants to be carbon neutral by 2040. Newsom still signed an executive order, hasn't retracted it, signed an executive order that everyone's got to be driving an electric vehicle by 2035.
It's getting close.
Yeah, all new cars. And to that point, let me just make a quick point here. Utilities don't have the ability to wait and see, because some people have speculated when Newsom's out of office, whoever comes in next, that's not sustainable. There's no way it's going to be in place. Something's going to give, something's going to change. Well, utilities have to be making plans now, today, in expectation of that. They can't just wait until 2034. Oh, you guys were serious? Geez. Hey, Jane, you better get on the horn. We got to do 10 years worth of work in a year.
Yeah, let's throw up a power plant really quick.
Yeah, it's persistent. So you've got carbon neutral by 2040. Everyone driving electric vehicles by 2035. And let me make a point here for those that may not know. If you drive 50 miles round trip in a fully electric car, so 100 miles total in a day.
Yep.
Bring it back home and charge it. You'll use about the same amount of energy that it takes to power a home in California for a full day.
Oh my gosh, I have a friend, and she was saying, I don't know if it was you or our solar repair guy, but she was asking him, like, my solar bill has gone, or my electricity bill has gone through the roof. I had panels installed in my house, and then I had panels installed in the yard because she's on some acreage, right? Mm-hmm. And my my electricity bill keeps going up. And he asked her, well, what kind of car do you drive? And she's like, an electric Hummer. And he's like, well, that's probably your problem, right? So.
That thing's got one of the biggest batteries out there in terms of the size. But let me just, so an average Tesla, 100 kilowatt hour battery.
Okay.
Drive about 300 miles. So if you do that 100 miles, you're going to use about a third of it. So you're going to use about 33 kilowatt hours to charge it back up again. The average home in California uses 31. So you imagine every little Tesla that you see out on the road as being a house in terms of its ability to consume energy. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're energy vampires.
It's crazy.
That's what they are, energy vampires. And so if every car now is electric, and here's the other thing, California right now sources 31% of the energy that it needs from outside the state. We can't handle what we consume today, yet they're stepping on the gas. Carbon neutral by 2040.
What does carbon neutral mean? I've never understood
It means
that.
you're offsetting the amount of carbon emissions that you're putting into the atmosphere with carbon credits. It means, like, for example, that's part of the reason that Tesla has done so well. They get carbon credits because they're selling a vehicle that doesn't have any emissions, right? So carbon neutrality means that it's almost like not having a footprint when you're walking in the sand. You're not doing any detriment to society, to the planet, because you've mitigated that with other policies. So that's what they're really trying to do, is be carbon neutral, the first state in the country to be carbon neutral by 2040.
Crazy.
So in that vein, for example, California Air Resources Board implemented a law that by 2030 you won't be able to, in California, on new houses or retrofit houses, get a natural gas version of a furnace to heat your home or a hot water heater. Everything will be electric versions of those in 2030. So what's important for the audience to understand is heating anything takes about 3 to 5 times as much energy as cooling anything. So heating air is more costly energy-wise than cooling air. I give that as context because most people that are listening to us to right now, the biggest utility bill you get, the most onerous, the most painful one
It's in the summer.
is in the summer.
Yeah.
Imagine a far more painful one in winter.
Yikes.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Imagine 2 to 3 times.
You're just filled with good news over there, Shawn.
Well, there is an answer. The good news is solar's cheaper than PG&E. Like, I do think that that's the only way that people will be able to have affordable electricity. I actually did a show recently. I called it The Inevitability of Solar in California. That, even people out there that have been stalwarts, like, hey, listen, I'm gonna bide my time. I'm gonna wait. I'm saying to them, you will at some point in this state, if what I believe to be is gonna happen happens, you will at some point have to consider it, unless you want to live more like the Amish, without electricity.
So even with the tariff increases, even with the increased cost of solar, there are people out there going, hey, is solar even going to make sense anymore?
Yeah.
You're saying yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Can you outline how that looks, or why so?
So for example, you brought up something. PG&E last year in 2024 had 6 rate increases to the tune of about 32%. Okay,
Wow.
so I'm gonna harp on them because they're the biggest offender. Okay, so PG&E, Southern California Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric. But PG&E last year, 32%, 6 rate increases, right? Mm-hmm. So tariffs are having an effect. Already shared with you, I've had a couple of installers, 2 out of 11 that we work with that have increased prices maybe 10 to 12%, right? Mm-hmm. But PG&E is going to continue through the next 10 to 12 years as they march toward carbon neutrality. And again, PG&E is a publicly traded company, right? You know, their sole mission isn't to save homeowners money. Their mission is to make investors money.
Yep.
They're a publicly traded company, right?
Yep.
They're guaranteed profitability. A lot of people don't realize this. When PG&E spends money on infrastructure, because they are a publicly traded utility, they're guaranteed over a 10% profit on the money that they spend. For example, wildfire mitigation, undergrounding lines. You know, you've heard that a lot, right?
Yep.
Because you don't want to devastate another community like Paradise and end the lives of 85 people. So
Well, just for context, I was talking with a guy up in Redding.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, Paradise is still like, it's still a horrible situation. And somebody goes, well, how many houses burned? And he's like 30, I think it was like over 30,000, 33,000 homes. We hear about the Palisades fires. It was like 13,000 homes.
Yeah.
Like double the amount of homes in Paradise because, you know, the lines weren't
Yeah.
underground or whatever.
And so in that vein, though, so the average cost of undergrounding a line, so PG&E's publicly stated that they want to underground 10,000 miles of utility lines, okay? They want to take their risk of another Paradise and turn it into a zero risk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's as a publicly traded company, the exact opposite of what you want to do is go bankrupt.
Yep.
Right? So, but here's this, $3 million a mile. Okay, 10,000 miles, that'd be $30 billion. But when they spend money on wildfire vegetation removal and mitigation, and then they spend money on infrastructure, redesigning their grid and undergrounding lines, they get guaranteed 10% profitability. PG&E in 2024 just announced, and this is the big, everyone's upset, record profitability. Never made more money in 2024 than ever before. And so that's kind of the disconnect. They're spending our money as homeowners and then showing record profitability because of their guarantee. All of it.
Who guarantees it?
Well, the CPUC, California Public Utilities Commission, they are a publicly traded, utility company in California, and they are effectively governed by the CPUC, which is part of the problem. The California Public Utilities Commission has allowed them to continue 6 rate increases last year. They wouldn't have been able to do that without the CPUC being on board.
So it's kind of like, I don't know what it does, what the name of the agency is for insurance, but the insurance agency authorizes whether or not insurance companies can raise their rates.
Yes.
The CPUC is the same thing for utility companies, but it sounds like they're having a better time getting rate increases than the insurance companies are.
Here's the thing. Like, if I'm brutally honest, I've said this many times on my show, my radio show. Mm-hmm. I think that they're all in cahoots with each other. It's because the CPUC, in other words, I can't remember the legislator's name, but there was a legislator in California, Republican legislator, that authored a bill that he wanted to prevent CPUC members from affiliating with the utilities after their tenure with the CPUC was up, because it was so persistent that board members would end up in high-paying, high-influence roles at the utility. Wink, wink. Hey, Jim, you're at the CPUC here. Listen, we want to advance this program where we're going to spend $30 billion of homeowners' money, but we're going to make $3 billion. But here, if you just vote yes, we got this cushy job waiting for you when you're done with your tenure.
We'll take care of you.
Yeah. Little wonder. I was just reading an article the other day about how much they'd contributed. PG&E had contributed to Newsom's either re-election and bid campaign, $2.5 million.
Wow,
that's major money. So to me, to answer your
and they wouldn't
question,
spend that money unless there was going to be potential for
there's
return.
Influence peddling, right, to some degree. So here's the point. Energy prices in California are not going to go down. I think it's foolish, and I think it's unfathomable that you could sit here and think that PG&E is ever going to get less expensive. As a publicly traded company, they're going to continue to get more expensive. Solar will get more expensive, but at a fraction of the cost compared to utilities. Because
so they're both increasing, but the utility companies are going to way outpace what solar increases are.
Yes, 100%. And I'll give you several reasons why. Need a break?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So let me give you an example. When you think about solar, okay, right now as it relates to the energy costs that are out there, okay, PG&E. So we have a program right now where companies will give a homeowner a solar system, install a solar system with batteries, okay? 0 out-of-pocket cost to the homeowner for that system. Okay. It's called the Power Purchase Program.
Yep.
You're not buying you're not buying the solar, you're not renting the solar, you're not getting a loan for it. You're just simply allowing somebody to install a system at your property and you're going to buy the energy from it. Okay. These programs right now are literally cutting most people's utility bill in half for a system that they didn't have to buy and a loan that they didn't have to get. Okay. So when you compare that to the cost of PG&E energy, so most people's utility bill, for example, with PG&E, if you look at the detail of your utility bill, you'll see 2 big charges on the electricity side. You're going to see a charge for generation, and then you're going to see a charge for delivery. Okay. Let's say you use $200 worth of monthly electricity from PG&E. So that was what it cost for them to generate that electricity. PG&E will then charge you $400 to deliver it to you. So 200 plus 4, you got a $600 utility bill for only $200 worth of energy. So the big cost is getting the energy to your house. Solar is made at the house.
Yep.
It's made from the roof. There is no delivery charge that's 2 times the actual cost of generation. It's just the generation charge. And so some people said to me, hey Shawn, this sounds too good to be true. It really does. They're going to give you a solar system, no loan. I mean, how does that work? And I said, you're thinking about it the wrong way. Let me tell you the right way to think about it. To think about it this way. This is the biggest sign and the biggest example of the problem of energy in California when a company from outside the state can come in, use their resources, spend tens of thousands of dollars to install a power plant for somebody's home and still make that profitable to them, charging you half as much as PG&E does.
Yeah, that's a good that reframes it clearly.
That this is not too good to be true. This is just how outrageously expensive California energy is. So, for example, currently right now, PG&E rates: Tier 1, 43 cents a kilowatt hour; Tier 2, 62 cents a kilowatt hour. My son's in Texas. Okay, he pays 4 to 9 cents. 4 for Tier 1, 9 cents for Tier 2. PG&E's at 43 to 62 cents.
Holy moly.
That's a problem.
Why is it so much cheaper in Texas?
It's just it's not PG&E for one thing.
Yeah.
So PG&E is pretty much a monopoly in the state of California. I mean, they really are because of their utility grid infrastructure. In Texas, you go in there, there's 30 different utility companies that sell in Texas. So to me, it's a more competitive market that way. PG&E just has a monopoly on the generation. Their assets go back to 1905. Hydroelectric power is where they really started. They captured watershed off the Sierra Nevada mountains to make energy, and their utility grid is what's the monopoly. It's not because you could, like with PG&E, you can get Pioneer energy if you're up in the foothills. Okay, people say I get my energy from Pioneer. That's how they escape being a monopoly on the generation side. Yeah, you can get it from Pioneer, but Pioneer has to use their utility grid infrastructure to deliver it to your home.
Got it.
That's where they have the monopoly. They have the monopoly on the rail lines, not on the goods. Think of it that way. Going back to the industrial age.
So when we come back, though, we're going to be talking about what this looks like moving forward in terms of AI. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about these programs that you're offering, because you don't offer just one program. I think you have 3 different programs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll dig into both those.
Awesome.
So I don't know about you, but I'm seeing more and more signs popping up in my neighborhood for folks who want to sell their home because they want to move out of state, to Tennessee, to Texas, to Idaho, to one of the Carolinas, to Florida, because they're retiring. They're going to get more bang for their buck in another state. Maybe you're in that same boat where you and your spouse, you and your family have thought about retiring, but you want to make sure you net the most money for your home. And in this market where things are up, things are down, things are uncertain, who can you trust that's an expert that's proven to sell homes faster and for more money than anyone else? Well, obviously, if you've been listening to the show, that's Johnny Jennings and the Tom Daves team at Made for More Realty. Hey, there's a reason why, listen to this, they have over 1,000 5-star Google reviews, why they've been voted the #1 team in Roseville for the past 3 years. And listen to this. If you're not interested in doing showings, open houses, maybe your home needs a few repairs and you don't want to pay for those, how about at least 3 cash offers on your home in as-is condition? Nobody gives you that kind of deal except Johnny Jennings. Again, at least 3 cash offers on your home in as-is condition. All you got to do is Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty and get more for your home. I trust him. I know many of our listeners trust him because it's not about just netting you the most money. We know this is a personal transaction for you. It's something that you've invested many, many years in, and you want someone you can trust, someone that has character and integrity. And that's why we recommend Johnny Jennings to so many of our listeners, because he is a man of faith. He's a man of integrity. He's a conservative, and we can't recommend anyone better than Johnny Jennings and the Tom Daves team at Made for More Realty. Just Google them and get more for your home.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
So you were talking earlier, Shawn, about how there's an increased demand for electricity in the coming years as we move to carbon neutral footprint here in California, but there's already not enough generation in the state. We're already having to import energy to meet our current demand. What does that look like with the rise of AI and just an increased energy consumption in general? How are we going to have brownouts? Are we going to have days where we just don't have electricity? I need a house battery? What does this look like?
Well, let me consult my crystal ball, and I'll be able to tell you, right? So
Sure.
we're living in a crazy age, right? So to think about how pervasive an effect artificial intelligence has already had in just 2 years?
Yeah.
Okay. Then think about the next 10 years, what's going to be possible. So, for your listeners, I would encourage them to Google this. The big companies out there, Meta, Google, Facebook, Google, Meta is Facebook, Amazon, many others. Microsoft. They are actually either rehabbing. I can't remember the name of the nuclear power plant that went offline within a year, and then one of these big companies said, "Okay, well, listen, we want to start it back up again," and they got approval to do so. And then Facebook and Meta and Microsoft are looking at small-scale nuclear production to benefit the AI that they want to bring on board. So, if you really pay attention to what's going on in this country, many believe that artificial intelligence, AI, because of the computing power and the storage power, and then you got to keep those. I've been to a data center before. I don't know if you ever have, but innocuous building you wouldn't look twice at, but it's got millions, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of computers in there, and they got to keep it really cold because that stuff gets hot.
Yep.
So it's really expensive to power that. So many people are suggesting that the biggest demand that we've ever seen for energy is coming through and will come through AI. And it's just a matter of time when that takes effect. So
more than houses, more than cars.
More than houses, more than cars.
What about manufacturing, with Trump trying to bring all the manufacturing back?
Well, yeah, it's just going to compound the problem.
Okay.
So we're already in a shortage of available, efficient, cheap energy, specifically in California. Okay, many other parts of the country not as much of a problem, but in California we are, right? And so I think that this is just a doubling down of the problem. This plays into what we talked about before. There is no way in my mind that I see some sort of big event coming down the line that's all of a sudden going to make people's $400 utility bill a $100 utility bill. I just don't see any variation of that whatsoever. What I see coming is more of the same, which most people have seen their utility bill double in the last 5 years.
So you think solar is a safe bet as far as get it now, you're just going to wish you'd gotten it sooner type of a thing?
I think it's going to be one of those things that is only going to increase in cost down the line. I don't think solar is going to all of a sudden get cheaper than it is today. But I think the benefit of solar is when you can make your energy at the house, when you can get rates that are locked in that won't increase in cost like PG&E has. So PG&E, 6 rate increases last year, 32%, right? Would you rather have that, okay, and that could happen this year. It could happen next year. It could be worse next year.
Yeah.
Who knows? Right? But would you rather have that, or would you rather have a contract that allows you 1 rate increase a year that you know what it's going to be and it's never more than 3.5%? 3.5% is manageable. 30% a year is not.
Yeah, I choose option B.
Option B, and we've got several programs that are like that. I'm just saying if you can make your own energy from sunlight, that's going to be cheaper for most people than whatever they're getting from the utility.
So one concern someone might have as a homeowner, obviously they see this idea of, oh, okay, I can generate my own power. I don't have to depend on some big corporation like PG&E raising my rates by 30%. This sounds great. But isn't solar dependent on good weather? What do I do when the weather's not so great out, like during the winter? How do I produce enough energy to power my home and my electric vehicle?
Yeah, great question. And that question is really, really appropriate, specifically to like off-grid systems. Like if let's say you had a property up in the mountains that had no PG&E access or no Edison or whatever. Mm-hmm. The only option you have is solar. Those systems end up being much more significant in size and cost because the only option you have is generating energy from solar. In other words, if you run out of power, you got nothing else. So with solar today, it's grid-tied systems, okay, which means that you still have a connection to PG&E or whatever utility you have. So you source a majority of your energy from solar. Doesn't mean that you're going to source all of it from solar. The example I like to give is let's say either one of you two gentlemen had a marriage in the family or a death in the family. Mm-hmm. You have a solar system, but all of a sudden you get 5 family members come stay with you for a week that you wouldn't normally have. You're going to use a lot more energy that week than you normally would, right? So it's good to be able to have the option of being able to source that from the utility. So I liken it to the difference between a checking account and a savings account. The solar is going to be the checking account, the normal debits and withdrawals, and then the savings account or whatever is going to be whatever you need to pull from the utility if you have an event or if it's seasonal. The worst season for solar is winter. The sun's out half as much time and it's lower in the southern sky. So it's just not going to produce. Most solar systems are going to underproduce for what most people generate or consume, most people consume in wintertime, okay? But that's just how they work. It doesn't mean that they're not beneficial, okay? So I liken it this way. The objective before the big solar change happened. So there's big solar change in California in 2023, right? So that change dropped the amount of crediting rate that you get for the excess energy that your system sends to the grid. So on a bright, sunshiny day, solar makes power, right? It makes energy. And I don't have a button that allows me to turbo it and make it make more energy, nor do we have a brake, right? It's just going to make power. So that excess energy gets sent to the utility, and then they give you some sort of compensation for that. That compensation now has been substantially reduced, which is why you want to have batteries, okay? If I store it in my battery, there's no reduction. If I give it to PG&E, they keep 75% of it, okay? So point of this is simple. My objective before this big change, when you used to get a 1-to-1 credit on the solar energy, was always to eliminate somebody's PG&E bill. It was easy to do. You just had to have a solar system that made more energy than what the homeowner consumed in a year.
Right.
And
it's simple to do.
If you overproduced, you were getting a credit.
You got a credit. You got to store that. That's why people had a true-up year. PG&E didn't want to trade money with people every day, or every month. Okay. Oh, I owe you $50. Oh, you owe me $60 or whatever. They just didn't want to do that. So they looked at the totality of a year. But point being is that with solar now, the objective used to be mitigating completely the utility bill. I tell people all the time, the objective with solar today is not eliminating 100% of your exposure to PG&E, but it's making the biggest dent that you can make in PG&E's cost for you as a homeowner without overbuilding a system where indirectly they become the major benefactor. Because I've seen people, let's throw on more panels. Next thing you know, they got this massive system that mostly benefits PG&E because once the batteries are charged up, all that surplus energy is being sent to them and they keep 75% of it. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't just because solar today may not cover 100% of somebody's PG&E exposure doesn't mean that it's not significantly more beneficial than just staying with PG&E.
How much energy is stored in those batteries?
Depends on the batteries, but effectively, in today's, for example, a Tesla Powerwall, which most people recognize the name of, 13,500 watts of energy can be stored in those in one Tesla Powerwall. So for context, let's say it's a spring evening. I don't want to account for a heat source or air conditioning yet. But let's say it's spring, 1 o'clock in the morning, your family's asleep, you're asleep, you got a refrigerator going, freezer, internet, security, a few lights on. let's say you're using 1,000 watts of energy an hour. That'd be high, but you're talking about 13 hours of stored energy in that battery. If you're only using 500 watts of energy an hour, then you're talking about 26 hours, right? But you fast forward to summer, most AC compressor units, 4 ton, 3 ton, 5 ton, whatever, 2,500 to 3,000 watts of energy an hour.
Wow.
So, that might only be 4 or 5 hours of continuous runtime on an AC unit in that case. But the good news about summer is that you're only bridging 8 hours of darkness, right?
Yeah.
Versus in winter, you're bridging 16 hours.
But now I'm thinking, now you got me freaked out about like utility bills. Like normally people are like, okay, the summer, you got the pool pump going, you got keep the house cool. Now I'm worried about what an all-electric house utility bill would look like.
Oh, yeah.
Even because now you're generating less power to offset the cost of the electricity.
I see it every day. I see it all the time. I mean, we deal with homeowner after homeowner that is, let's say, aged, retired, older, okay? And some of these people don't realize that the smallest little energy vampire that exists today is those dish space heaters, right? So some people supplement by having those dish heaters around their house or sit in front of one or whatever, and they don't realize how much energy. And all we got to do is we'll call PG&E and we'll look at their utility bill, and you'll see a big spike in winter. That's the hardest problem to deal with in solar because winter's the worst season for solar.
Yeah.
Right.
So make hay while the sun's shining type of a thing.
Yeah, make hay while the sun's shining. You got it.
And then wait it out through the winter. But so at the end of the day, solar's still a good idea.
Yes.
What are some of these programs? Because you said there's a number of programs where obviously people can go out and finance them, or they can buy the systems outright.
Yeah.
But if somebody wants to get involved in solar at a no or low cost option, what does that look like?
I think that one of the best programs, so and I just recently talked about it. I'm glad you asked this question because I want to be very candid. I used to rail against these power purchase programs about 2.5, 3 years ago. Okay. Used to say, stay away from them, nothing good. If you own your house, own your roof, own your power kind of thing. I was a big advocate after 22 years of being a financial advisor, a big advocate for owning the system. But keep in mind, 2.5 years ago, we had rates at 0.99%. I mean, it was easy to finance something if you wanted to. We didn't have inflation has been, or let me say it differently, solar has been on the front lines of inflation. You got a lot of metals, a lot of componentry that's affected by inflation. So in the last 2.5 years, the cost of solar has gone up, and then financing has just become super expensive. Solar is a high-risk financed asset for companies that lend against it. Not for the reason you would think. It's not normally because of the credit borrower, defaulting per se, but it's the fact that as soon as they install that system, they're underwater by probably 50% because half the cost of solar is labor, right? You never recover that. So if somebody doesn't pay you, now you got to try to take back your used solar equipment. Could I talk you into somebody else's 3-year-old panels that they didn't defaulted on the loan and now company took back, or would you rather have new ones? Right.
Yep,
so the risk is that you don't have any significant collateral. So real rates of solar financing right now, beyond mortgage rates. What are mortgage rates right now? 6.5?
Yeah, mid-6s, depending on what you're doing. Yeah.
So best you can do in solar maybe is 8, realistically closer to 10. So that's where really the advantage of, I think, power purchase programs play today is that power purchase programs are simply outlined this way. Instead of buying a system, instead of financing a system, instead of leasing a system, just buy the power that solar creates from somebody else that owns it. It's called a TPO, third party owner program. Okay, you don't own it, so you're not responsible for insuring it. You're not responsible for maintaining it. You're not responsible for monitoring it. The warranty. So for example, with the warranties with batteries are critical to the solar equation today, right? Tesla's manufactured warranty on a Tesla Powerwall 3 is 10 years. Okay, life expectancy, I hope you get 15 out of it. Enphase, which I think is the best battery available in solar right now, they have a 15-year warranty on their batteries with a life expectancy of probably 20. There isn't a battery out there made today, that's expected to last 25 years. But with a power purchase program, the length of those programs are a 25-year power purchase program, and they'll cover all of the componentry for that 25 years. Including the batteries.
Oh, wow.
So I say to people that buy a system, buy solar, pay cash for it, I said, listen, you need to have a sinking fund or plan to have some sort of money available to replace the batteries at some point because they won't last 25 years, right?
Yeah.
But with a power purchase program, they insure it monitor it. So let's talk about those two things, okay? And then we'll talk about the battery replacement. If I insure something, is the cost of insurance over the next 25 years likely to increase?
Absolutely.
How about the cost of human capital over the next 25 years? Monitoring, sending crews out there,
Most
probably.
definitely, yeah.
And then the solar componentry is going to wear out eventually. It's going to need to be replaced. So that's why these programs have a 3.5% escalator, is they have to account for insurance, human capital, and replacement issues, okay? But everything else is covered by the program. So if you can have a third-party owner system, if you can have a solar system installed at your property, roof or ground mount, give you 2 to 6 batteries along with it, and then all you have to do is buy the energy that the system produces, like you do from PG&E, but the cost of it is meaningfully cheaper. I shared with you earlier in the last segment that PG&E right now, Tier 1 rates are 43 cents a kilowatt hour. Tier 2 are 62 cents a kilowatt hour. Many of these power purchase programs, depending on how much energy you use, let me qualify this because somebody just checked me on this yesterday, and I'm very specific about what I say. Okay?
I can tell, yeah.
Very specific. It is size dependent. Most of our clients are seeing their utility bill cut in half for a system that they don't have to buy and a loan that they didn't have to get and a check they didn't have to write, okay? But that's for somebody that uses at least 11.6. So the average house's consumption in California, 12,000 kilowatt hours. I can't cut somebody's 4,000 kilowatt hour bill in half. Okay.
Got it.
So in other words, the lower the usage, the more challenging it is to cut it in half. The higher the usage, we can actually get under 50%. But so in summary, to be able to benefit from solar, to be able to mitigate the cost, to be able to not write a check now, because somebody asked me the other day, is it always best to pay cash for solar? And I thought about it, given my 22-year background as a fiduciary financial advisor, and I thought about it and I said, no, it's not always best. And they said, well, why would you say that? I said, well, if I was an astute investor and had capital that I was going to spend on solar, could I think of another place over the next 10 years where I might be able to get better than a break-even return? Because if you write a check for solar, realistically, 7 to 10 years is about your cost recovery. Let's err against the homeowners. Let's say it takes 10 years. So I'm at 10 years to get my capital back. Okay,
You're break even.
Break even in 10 years. Yeah. Now, if I took that same capital and put it into what we just talked about, AI, let's say, okay, is it likely over the next 10 years I might be a little better than just getting my money back out of that investment, okay? And if that snowball rolling downhill is compounding, I can take the savings from the power purchase program, cut my bill in half, add it to that AI kitty, fast forward 10, 15, 20, 25 years, which bag is going to be bigger? The savings just because I paid cash for solar, or the bag of the investment that I took that money and instead put it someplace else? So that was the qualifier.
That's the thing. Go ahead, Matt.
Can you see companies like PG&E getting into the solar industry?
Well, you might be surprised that 2 of the largest solar farm originators in our local area are SMUD and PG&E. They're already in it. They like solar. They just don't want you to have it. They want to generate it so they can charge you for the free sunlight that they get. They love solar. They generate solar. California is the most solar adopted state in the country, and many of the utilities have solar farms and or benefit from it. They just
and
don't.
PG&E don't offer it to homeowners, to residents.
Well, they offer
it
their
from their own
program.
grids, but not from you personally producing it.
Correct.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that is interesting. That's a good question.
Yeah, great question.
The thing I like about what you're describing right here, though, is because so many times I go into a homeowner's house and they tell me, hey, I just had solar installed last year. It cost me $30,000, $40,000. So the house is worth this, but now we're going to have to increase it by $30,000 to $40,000 because, in their mind, that's an improvement, and you should get a dollar for dollar return on that. And sometimes life takes a crazy turn. They weren't planning on moving; they thought they were going to be there for a while, and they were going to, in 10 years, break even, and then 11, 12 years see a return on that initial investment. With this power purchase agreement, day one you start saving money.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no risk.
You don't have to wait 7 to 10 years. It's one of the easiest. So I used to rail against them because they were difficult to transfer to a new homeowner.
Yeah.
Okay. So the 2 most difficult contracts to transfer to a new homeowner today are a financed agreement and a lease agreement. Okay.
So power purchase has gotten easier.
They have.
Okay.
Yeah. So finance and lease, you got to get somebody to fall in love with your house and then fall in love with your solar debt.
Yep.
Which people don't want to do. They'll negotiate with you and say to pay it off. Is what they want. But when you can do a soft credit inquiry, not even a hard inquiry, to take over the program, much the same way that you would call PG&E. When you sign up for new service at a new house that you just bought, do you not have to give them your social?
Yeah.
You got to give them your name, your address. You got to give them date of birth. You got to give them your social. You got to give them all the details. Same parameter with the power purchase programs. Okay, today. So it's much easier now to transfer those. So right now, today, I think they're the best game going because most people are, 2.5, 3 years into inflation, may not have the cash they used to. We got tariff fears. We got economic concerns. We got high interest rates because loans haven't come down at all in cost. And so to me, when you can benefit from solar without having to be the guy that either gets a loan and has indebtedness on your credit report now, it affects your debt to income ratio, but you can still benefit without that and you don't have to write a check for it. I mean, who wouldn't want to maybe do that? And that's one of the reasons why I would encourage somebody to text solar to 84503 if you're interested.
Solar to 84503.
Yeah.
There we go. Well, hey, this has been freaking phenomenal. I enjoy having you on the show every single time. I think this is our second or third time back.
Yeah.
If somebody's listening and what's the number one question you get? Like, what's the number one thing holding somebody back from texting you or moving forward with solar? What's that number one thing?
Yeah, I think I don't think that there's one thing, but I'd say that there's several different things. Some people think that when I talk about what I just talked about, it's too good to be true. Okay, and I think that let's just it's not too good to be true because it takes these companies about 10 to 13 years to recover their capital and what they charge you to buy the energy. So think of it this way: if you and I went into business and we financed or installed a solar system at our cost for some homeowner, okay, first thing we're going to be looking to do is recover our capital. Okay. So I want to do that in as little time as possible, so 10 to 12 years. And then we're probably going to have to replace their battery somewhere in between 15 and 20 years.
Yep. So
I've got maybe a 10-year window here of profitability, okay? So it's not too good to be true. It's just an emblematic situation that when somebody can still profit from giving you a solar system and charging you half as much as PG&E, the focus should be PG&E's the problem. The expense is outrageous. California is outrageous. Okay, so some people think it's too good to be true. So I wanted to address that. I think the secondary issue is, people have heard so much mixed feelings on solar. They might have had a friend. Hey, I know this guy Jim, and he had like this $3,000 true up. So I don't think solar works.
Yeah.
A $3,000 true up in solar isn't an example of solar not working. It's an example of solar needing to be specific in size. What size shoe do you wear, Johnny?
18.
You wear 18?
No, I don't. I'm like an 11.
Okay, could we take your 11 foot and stuff it into a size 7 shoe?
Not comfortably.
No. You can't take a solar system that's supposed to generate 10,000 kilowatt hours of energy and make it generate 18,000 kilowatt hours of energy because some new buyer bought the house. The older clients use less energy. They were more frugal than the new family does, right? So solar there's no moving parts. Okay, there's no gears to grind, fluid to change, none of that stuff. It doesn't break often. It can, but it doesn't break often. So to me, solar is a proven technology, been around for like 40 years. And the idea is that it's far more beneficial to generate electricity from sunlight than it is from the dirty grid utility company and using their resources.
Well, I also like about the power purchase agreement that they monitor it as well. Because I've heard horror stories of people buying solar houses with solar on them and some of the panels aren't working or the inverter's not working at all. Now there's at least somebody monitoring. There's some accountability there to make sure that this agreement you signed up for is taking place.
You brought in something that I think is a really good point to this. Accountability from the perspective of most power purchase programs have some sort of minimum production guarantee. Let's say Matt was a skeptic and he says, "Hey, I'm buying this amount of energy. What's to say that it doesn't generate half of what they said it was?"
Yep.
Okay. So now I'm paying twice as much for half as good, right?
Yep.
Well, the production guarantee basically states that 90%, let's use that number, it's close enough. Some are 87, some are 90. But the company is obligated to pay you a refund if they don't generate 90% of what was stated on the production generation that it was supposed to generate per year.
Wow.
Okay? So they're not going to Matt's former point, they're not going to insure you against all weather risk. Some winters are more inclement, more seasonal, more wet, more storms come through than others, and you're probably not going to generate the same amount of energy every single year in every single winter season. So they're not going to insure you against all that. But this brings to point this thing here. The power purchase programs, because of the production guarantee that they have, it does not suit them, and it actually bites them big if they don't install some of the best equipment on that house. So, for example, you mentioned an inverter problem. In solar, there's two different types of inverters. String inverter, which strings all the panels together, which kind of works like a Christmas tree light string.
Okay.
Each panel is like a light, right? What's the one major problem with Christmas tree lights?
If one light's out, the whole thing dies.
You got it.
Yeah.
So string inverters have that weakness. That's not the same with micro. Micro inverters are on the back side of each one of the panels. There's no main inverter that's a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 cost. So each panel has its own small micro inverter. It's more dependable. It's more reliable. You don't have the ability to lose multiple panels because of one inverter issue. Okay.
Yep.
So these power purchase programs, it does not suit them to install a crappy panel that degrades quick, does not suit them to install a string inverter that then breaks and they got 10 panels that go out.
Yeah.
Does not suit them to have poor battery technology because they can't store the energy. So effectively, they got to get the good stuff out there because they don't want it to work against them because of that production guarantee. And that's an important thing to remember.
That is huge. I didn't realize they did that, but I liked when you said that they are monitoring it. I'm like, okay, that's worth its weight right there.
Well, if you contrast that against like a cash-owned system, if I buy a system for cash, who's responsible for monitoring?
You are the homeowner.
Who's responsible for maintenance?
The homeowner.
All those, and so.
And do you even know how to check the inverter? How do you even know if it's producing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
How people just get busy doing life. They don't realize something failed or had an issue or whatever. And to that end, I think that professional monitoring, to your point, is they're on it because they have a meter running. As soon as that system goes down, if there's some sort of an issue with it, they've got a clock now ticking against them that they're going to have to refund that homeowner whatever the difference is that they didn't produce, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they professionally monitor it.
Yeah, I can see why you're a fan of these programs now. They have changed. It's kind of similar to reverse mortgages. They had a horrible name in the 90s, and now it's like it's a really a beneficial tool for people who are looking to retire or looking to turn their home into a cash machine for them. So things change. Just because it was bad doesn't mean it's bad today.
I think that's the biggest thing that I wrestle with is I talk to homeowners every single day that looked at solar 3 years ago. That's like somebody coming up to you, Johnny, and saying, well, I should be able to, this is the best housing market ever, and I should be able to get a loan at like 3%, right?
Yeah.
That was 3 years ago.
I wish. Yeah.
But so I call it the solar coaster.
I love
It's
that.
so frequent and so, it's up, it's down, it's sideways, it loops you up and down, makes you want to vomit. That's the solar coaster that I'm on, right? So the only constant has changed. When somebody tells me they looked at solar as little as 6 months ago, I'm saying it's different now. Like last time we talked 6 months ago, I had one program where, I said, hey, here's these third-party ownership type programs. Now I've got three. I got three different programs. You want roof mount, ground mount, batteries, backup. I got all the options.
Man, the batteries are coming hard too. Like there's so many houses I walk into now where I'm seeing these Tesla batteries, whereas a year, 18 months ago, it was a rarity to see a Tesla battery. Yeah,
well, ever since the 2023 change in solar systems, so older folks don't need batteries because the utility looks and acts like them. So if somebody's listening, if you have a true up with the utility, you have a NEM 2 system, you don't need a battery. Because the utility stores the energy for you like a battery. Mm-hmm. Okay, new solar customers do. So the longer that solar adoption occurs after 2023, the more battery storage you're going to see. And then I think there's also the redundancy of being able to generate your own power on an outage. Back to your original question, right? You said something about, are we going to see rolling blackouts? I don't see how we meet the demand that's coming reasonably. I've speculated that you could instead of rolling blackouts, which are timed infrequently, I could see scheduled blackouts. I could see in your area on the second Tuesday of every month between, Monday from 4 to 9, you're not going to have power.
And just plan on it.
Just plan on it.
Trash day. Hey, Tuesday, make sure the trash is out.
How else is it going to work when they're building more houses, buying more electric cars, when we can't even meet the demand that we have now in this state, right? And they're stepping on the gas of making more demand, significantly more demand.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what's coming, but I could speculate that could be possible. I could see scheduled blackouts being something that would be be easier to deal with than blindsided blackouts.
Well,
right?
I just have so many questions. I have questions about generators. I have questions about batteries. But we're just going to have you back at a later time.
You will.
But
Yeah.
one more time. What's the best way for somebody to reach out to you?
Reach out to us directly. All you got to do is text SOLAR, SOLAR, to 84503. We have a short text code. So if somebody wants to reach out to us directly, communicate with us. We're really knowledge first, information first. We're not high pressure. I'm not going to call you 80 times. We just don't work that way, right? So don't think, whoever's listening, don't think that, reaching out to us is going to then give you a barrage of 30 solar companies wanting to talk to you. But if somebody texts SOLAR to 84503, that will get us in touch, or they'll get in touch with us, and we'll help them to understand what's out there, how it works, their property level concerns. I mean, the real three things that we looked at. We looked at individual, what are they trying to accomplish? What are they dealing with?
Yep.
Because right now, people are living more uncomfortably than they've ever lived in their own homes. People are suffering with temperatures in the summer that are greater than what they really want, suffering with temperatures in the winter that are colder than what they really want, because they don't want to or can't afford the amount of electricity that they need, right? So are you looking for more comfort? Are you looking for a better life inside your home? Property level concerns, and then how much energy are you using. Those three things are really what we're going to deep dive into initially, but we're very low key. We'll show you all the information, show you all of the proposals, find the best companies to work with. We've vetted these companies. How does an average homeowner know what company's a good one or a bad one, or know what might be jeopardized, the next one to go out of business?
Yeah.
This is what we live and breathe every day. So if somebody wants to do that, they can do that. And then another thing is, if somebody's just looking for more information, I've got my own YouTube channel, Graybeard Talk Solar. I've got about 25 videos on there. Great information. I talk about things like you're talking about, battery storage and outages and what's coming in California and stuff like that. So if somebody wants to check out the Graybeard Talk Solar YouTube channel, they'll find a lot of information there too.
Fantastic. I don't know why it's Graybeard. I don't know what the origin story of that name.
What do you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Gray beard? What?
In December, he plays Santa Claus. He goes around to the different communities.
You got. I'm going to become the graybeard hippie Santa Claus.
You look like who was it? Odin.
Yeah.
Did you see Arnold
God.
Schwarzenegger is playing Santa Claus?
No.
You look a little bit like how he's trying to portray the character.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Like a jacked Santa.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks for being on the show, Shawn.
Hey, Johnny. Thank you for the opportunity.